You know that feeling? You get a new piercing, you're doing everything by the book, but it's just angry. It won't heal. It's super frustrating, right? Well, what if I told you the problem isn't your aftercare at all? What if it's the actual jewelry? Yeah, we're about to dive into the hidden science of body jewelry. And trust me, the metal you choose, it might be the single most important decision you make. So check this out. This isn't just a theory. A manufacturing and clinical researcher named Patrick told us about this case back in 2018. A studio in Bangkok was seeing a 30% mystery rejection rate. I mean, can you imagine the frustration? Almost 1 in 3 clients coming back with issues. And it had nothing to do with their cleaning routine or the piercer's skill. Nope, the problem was lurking in the metal itself. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? We all obsess over the aftercare. We buy the special sprays. We're super careful with the soap. We repeat the mantra, don't touch it, don't touch it. But what about the one thing that's always in contact with our body? The metal itself. So let's shift our focus. It's time to talk about the hardware. Okay, so first up, we've got to talk about the big one, the most common material you'll see out there, the one that sounds so official and safe, but is honestly a huge gamble for a new piercing. I'm talking about so-called surgical steel. Yeah, you've seen this everywhere. 316L stainless steel, often marketed as surgical grade. I mean, the name itself sounds totally legit, right? If surgeons use it, it's got to be safe for my helix piercing. But spoiler alert, that's not really how it works. Okay, so let's break this down. Here's the dirty secret of surgical steel. It's an iron-based alloy, which is just a mix of metals. And a big part of that mix, nickel. We're talking 10 to 14% nickel. Now, look at the alternative, ASTM F136 titanium. It's a titanium-based alloy, and the key thing here is it's basically nickel-free, less than 0.05%. So, what's the big deal with nickel? Well, this number says it all. A whopping 18% of people globally have some kind of nickel sensitivity. That's almost 1 in 5. And here's the scary part. You might not even know you're sensitive until you put a piece of nickel-heavy metal inside a fresh, open wound. Not ideal. And here's how it goes down. A fresh piercing is, well, it's an open wound. And the environment inside that wound, all warm and salty with your bodily fluids, is actually pretty corrosive. That environment can cause the nickel to literally leach out of the steel and right into your tissue. This can lead to all sorts of bad news. Irritation, your body pushing the jewelry out completely, or worse, it can trigger a nickel allergy that you'll have for the rest of your life. Okay, so the solution seems pretty obvious, right? Ditch the steel, go for titanium. Easy peasy, but hold on, it's not quite that simple. Just like there are different kinds of steel, not all titanium is created equal. And yeah, picking the wrong one can land you right back in trouble. You've probably heard this before. A studio might say, oh, we use grade 5 titanium, or even aerospace grade. And that sounds super high-tech and impressive, but here's the thing. That's an industrial grade material. It's for planes, not people. When you're putting something inside your body for a long time, the only standard that matters is the medical one. And that standard has a name, ASTM F136. So what's the magic difference? It all boils down to 3 little letters, ELI. That stands for extra low interstitials. That sounds complicated, but think of it like this. Interstitials are just tiny impurity elements, like little bits of oxygen and iron, that sneak into the tiny spaces between the titanium atoms. ELI is basically a super strict quality control spec that says, nope, we're keeping those little invaders to an absolute bare minimum. And this table shows you exactly why that matters for your piercing. Look at the difference between industrial grade 5 and the proper ASTM F136. With F136, you get way less oxygen, which means the metal isn't as brittle. You get less iron, which lowers any risk of toxicity, and it's more ductile, meaning it can bend without breaking, so it resists those dangerous microfractures. In every single category that matters for healing, F136 is just... Let's just focus on the oxygen for a second. That difference between 0.2% and 0.13% might seem tiny, but it has huge consequences. That little bit of extra oxygen in industrial grade 5 titanium is exactly what makes it more brittle. Now think about it. Your piercing is always moving and under a little bit of stress. A brittle metal can develop tiny microscopic cracks. And what loves to live in tiny cracks? Bacteria. Those cracks become perfect little hideouts, leading to those stubborn infections that just never seem to go away. Okay, so we've talked about the right ingredients. But even if you have the perfect metal, it doesn't mean anything if it's not made the right way.
The manufacturing process itself is just as critical for your safety. So most cheap jewelry is made by casting. You just pour molten metal into a mold. Simple, right? The problem is that process can trap tiny gas bubbles inside, creating these microscopic voids. It's kind of like a metal sponge on a tiny scale. But the much better way to do it is called metal injection molding, or MIM. This method takes a fine metal powder and fuses it together at an atomic level. The result? A super dense, uniform structure with no little pockets for bacteria to hide in.
The whole MIM process is actually really cool. You start with this super fine metallic powder mixed with a binder. Then it goes into a furnace where it's heated up and all those tiny particles fuse together. That's called sintering. But the best of the best add one more step called hot isostatic pressing, or HIP. They take that piece and subject it to insane heat and pressure from every direction, literally squeezing out any last possible void. What you're left with is a piece of metal that's as close to perfectly solid as you can get. And this quote right here, this just says it all. The process we just described, it's the exact same process used to make turbine blades for jet engines. Seriously, just let that sink in. If a process is required to keep a Boeing 787 from falling out of the sky, shouldn't that be the absolute minimum level of safety you'd accept for jewelry you're putting inside your own body? I think so. I know, we just threw a ton of technical stuff at you. But what does it all mean when you're actually standing in a piercing studio? Let's boil it all down into a super simple, actionable checklist that you can actually use. All right, get your notepad out, here we go. Number 1. For any initial piercing, you need to insist on ASTM F136 titanium, no exceptions. Number 2, be smart about marketing. Terms like implant grade sound good, but they don't mean anything without the technical spec to back it up. F136 is the standard you're looking for. Number 3, don't be afraid to ask for proof. Ask your piercer to see the Material Mill Certificate, or MTR. It's basically the metal's birth certificate, and it proves exactly what it's made of. And finally, number 4, look at the finish. It should be a perfect mirror polish. Why? Because the smoother the surface, the fewer microscopic nooks and crannies there are for bacteria to set up camp. So, when you boil it all down, it comes to this one simple, kind of mind-blowing question. The technology exists to make the jewelry in your body with the same precision and safety standards as a part in a jet engine. So the next time you're thinking about getting some new body art, don't just ask yourself if it looks cool. Ask yourself, is this piece of art engineered to the same standard as a jet engine?